Hi, everyone. My name is Suzanne Hume. I'm the Educational Director and founder of CleanEarthForKids.org, a nonprofit. I'm so proud to introduce our amazing youth here today to talk to you about many important things. First up, I'd like to introduce Leanna.
Thank you, Suzanne. Hi, everyone. My name is Leanna Cortez. Students, remember if you're watching this, you can earn community service by writing 2 pages of notes and a short summary of what you learned. More information is on cleanforkids.org. You're also welcome to enter our K-12 contests like art, music, writing, dance, STEM projects, infographics, and to help us just protect nature, clean water, clean air, oceans, rivers, wildlife, forests, parks, and our food and health. At cleanerforkids.org, we also have 6 teams, and social and environmental justice is integrated into all those teams. So the panelists tonight will introduce themselves and each team. So I will start. Hi, my name is Lena, as I mentioned, and I am the youth board team lead for Team 1, which is climate action, renewable energy, and sustainability. Our website has examples of climate action plans and resolutions for cities and school districts. You can also enter our climate action contest and send us your ideas and actions. Now, I would like to introduce Catherine.
Hi everyone, I'm Catherine. I am part of Team 2, hashtag plant and protect. Plant trees as well as protect forests and wildlife. I like to plant trees, build trails, and do projects that help nature in my community. You are welcome to send us a picture of your projects for our contest and tell us about what you do to help our environment. Tonight I will be talking about the ESA, also known as the Endangered Species Act. And now I would like to introduce Judith.
Hello, I'm Judith, an artist with Team 3. We focus on clean air, no idling, because kids breathe here. You can join me in our K-12 art contest and draw pictures or design infographics to help protect our air, water, public lands, and wildlife. Tonight, I'll be talking about MATS, mercury and air toxic standards, RGGI, our GGI, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and have a conversation with Gabby about the need to listen to the science experts and why it's important to understand how the chemical companies and others have industry-funded studies and what that exactly means. We'll also talk about the differences between misinformation and disinformation. I would like to introduce Jonah.
Hi there, I'm Jonah with Team 4, Water's Life, and I work to protect safe drinking water, oceans, rivers, and streams because pollutions and oil spills and fracking harm our water. And also tonight we're going to be talking about the importance, the dangers of lead pipes bringing water into our homes, in our communities, in our cities, because lead's a neurotoxin and harms the brains of our kids. And I'll also be talking about 2 important new policies, or policies that have been enacted in the past and are now being damaged by the Trump administration. And then those are the Clean Water Act and the STREAM Act. In addition, there's also a new policy being proposed called the Water Act, and I'm going to be talking about that tonight too. So now I'd like to introduce Gabby.
Hi everybody, I'm Gabby and I'm with Team 5, which is Stop Toxic Chemicals and Pesticides. I'm head of the media and I like to create YouTube videos and take pictures for our organization, and you can join me to protect bees, wildlife, and health. We are looking forward to hearing about your ideas to be pesticide free. You can enter our contest too, or send us your ideas, art, designs, presentations, and ways to protect parks, schools, public lands, or food and be pesticide free. So to get started, Jonah, could you please tell us about the proposed Water Act of 2019?
Of course, thanks so much. I'd like to take a quick sec to thank Janice for gathering all this information for me and being super organized in her preparation for this topic. Anyways, I'll get into it now. And have you heard that cities and communities might now be able to provide safer water to people? And this is through a new act being proposed by Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont that could help cities and communities provide clean, safe drinking water. And it's a plan to upgrade and modernize infrastructure, namely the pipes that bring us drinking water as part of our public water system. And the formal name of this act is the Water Act, or Water Affordability, Transparency, Equity, and Reliability Act of 2019, which would create $35 billion for new pipes to bring water. And especially since lead, neurotoxin, has been found in old pipes used to bring drinking water to homes. And there's no safe level of lead in water. Any lead is really, really bad for you. We have to replace these old pipes because people are literally being poisoned by their own water supply still here in the United States. And the most famous example of that, or well known in the news, is that of Flint, Michigan, where you can see the pictures on the slides here. This is what the water looks like when you turn on the faucet in Flint. And this has been the state of drinking water in Flint for literally years, and it hasn't been fixed. And it's not just only Flint. This is many communities across the United States struggle for clean, safe drinking water because of old or inadequate systems of water that are just breaking down because they've been around for so long. And these old pipes, did you know that every year 240,000 water main breaks happen that waste more than 2 trillion gallons of drinking water every single year? And we're really hopeful that this Water Act passes, and it's been read in the Senate, but it has to be voted on still before it can pass and be enacted. But we're really hoping that it does, because everyone should have safe drinking water. The Water Act updates and modernizes our drinking water system in the United States. And if it passes, it'll be good for water. And also the economy, because people are going to be needed to replace these pipes. And as we know, the economy is really struggling right now. People are losing their jobs. And this would create a ton of jobs in a time when they're desperately needed. So anyways, you can go to cleanearthforkids.org to sign a petition. Tell your congressperson to support this act because it's just so important. Soon after Leanna shares information about the 100 rollbacks or cuts of protection, I'll be talking about those cuts specifically that are happening to the Clean Water Act, the Clean Water Rule, and the Streams Act. So, Leanna, could you please share those 100 rollbacks or cuts under the Trump administration?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Jonah. So, hi everyone. Again, I'm Leanna, Team 1. So, unfortunately, during the Trump administration, there have been the 100 rollbacks or cuts to environmental protections that are either fully done or in progress or have not started yet. And some of these rollbacks limit science, scientific data, environmental reviews, and the public's ability to be informed and speak out about these things. Additionally, the rollbacks under the Trump administration cut decades of environmental protection and the public's right to know NEPA, or the National Environmental Policy Act, which is the foundational law of the environment, basically, and that is being cut, which Judith has talked about in the past. So again, we are extremely concerned about these 100 rollbacks and the taking away of our protections, especially environmental protections, that result in problems for our health, our water, our air, and so many more, which we need to protect because we need clean air, clean water, and just overall great health. So this theme of blocking public access to make comments or get the information needed is extremely concerning, and it was one of the rollbacks that we've discussed in previous panel discussions. So we learned about the Harvard tracker because of the New York Times article written. So again, thank you to New York Times for publishing the article on the 100 rollbacks, and thank you to Harvard and Columbia for your tracker and keeping people informed. We really appreciate it. So if you guys want to learn more about the 100 rollbacks and actions you can take, please visit cleanforkids.org. Additionally, we also have a call it out challenge. So you can use this to call out pollution, one of the 100 rollbacks, or anything that's harmful to our environment. For example, Judith did discuss that, or show an example of her call it out challenge when she talked about Andrew Wheeler, head of the EPA, who was a former coal lobbyist, which is obviously definitely not fitting and needs to be called out. So if you guys would like to do that, just head to cleanforkids.org. So Jonah, could you give us information about rollbacks or cuts of protections underneath the Trump administration?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these rollbacks have to do with an act that was originally created in 1948 called the Clean Water Act. And this act was significantly expanded in 1972 to the point where now a lot of times we call it the Clean Water Act of 1972. But basically, it was made to regulate standards for the release of chemicals and pollutants into our water, protecting its cleanliness and its safety. Yeah. Next slide. Again. And there's another separate thing called the Clean Water Rule. And this was enacted in 2015 to expand that act that I just talked about, the Clean Water Act. And it's known as WOTUS, Waters of the United States. And under this, it expanded the areas of water that were protected. And now it protected a third of the United States population's drinking water. But as we've seen recently, under the Trump administration, what is those extensions as to what bodies of water or streams or rivers or ponds were protected have been severely limited, to the point where we're not sure anymore what's going to be protected at this point. You can see in this graphic that very many, all those brown areas are areas of water that are no longer going to be protected, are no longer going to be guaranteed to be free of chemicals, free of pollutants. And that's obviously a huge problem, given that we already see that there's places in the United States where people don't have access to clean drinking water. And yeah, during the Trump administration, we've had over 100 rollbacks or undoing the protections for water, air, and land.
Thank you so much for that important information. Yeah, thank you so much. We're so interested in all we can do to protect water. Thank you for letting us know about the new, the important thing that we can do with the Waters Act put forward by Senator Sanders that is being proposed. And we've got that petition on Clean Earth for Kids. And thanks again for talking with us about how our water, unfortunately, under these 100 rollbacks is really under attack. So not okay. And so Leanna, could you give us some more information?
Yes, so well, for one, the rollbacks are especially important to me because I work with climate action, renewable energy, and sustainability, and not pretty much all of these rollbacks impact climate action or sustainability or even renewable energy in some way, as we've talked about how interconnected a lot of these rollbacks are in terms of how they go back to climate action or social justice and environmental justice. So it's really important that we stay educated on this. And so thank you, Jonah, for that information as well. I guess I want to talk a little bit more about supporting renewable energy and renewable energy efforts. So one of the things I want to talk about is community choice energy, which if you have attended some of our previous panel discussions, I talked about how this was a really important aspect of climate action plans and trying to get this in your city. I know the city of San Diego recently just passed, well, not recently, but fairly recently, passed community choice energy, and we're trying to get it in a lot of areas in California. And basically, community choice energy is like this model of a nonprofit purchasing renewable energy for a city's benefits. So the community essentially has a choice of where their energy comes from instead of having to adhere to just city energy provided by one company that kind of monopolizes everything, and that usually pertains to natural gas or coal, depending on your area. But here it allows people to use more sustainable energy types, such as solar energy. For example, that is probably the biggest one and the most notable option for multiple areas, whether you're in California or on the East Coast, New York, Florida. Solar is the most universal option for this type of plan. So this means allowing people to choose their energy types means we can reduce greenhouse gases like natural gas that are causing climate change and hopefully move towards a more sustainable and livable future. And so I guess I'm talking a lot about renewable energy. Renewable energy is important because when we rely on non-renewable energy types like oil, coal, natural gas, we are not only harming our planet. We're also causing a lot of social and environmental injustices in the communities near where they might be mining for it, or they might have factories for it. And additionally, we're also allowing a lot of that that money from those companies to be also intertwined with a lot of politics and stuff. So it is extremely problematic in a multitude of ways. So it's important that we start shifting towards renewable energy for a more sustainable future, as well as trying to right our social and environmental injustices. So that is another reason why renewable energy is extremely important. In fact, right now, Chevron, a gas company, is installing solar panels to power oil pumps because it saves them money. So it shows how renewable energy can actually save a lot of money in terms of energy, especially for community members. And so even a gas company acknowledges that renewable energy not only saves them money, but it's also extremely efficient, as they're using them to power oil pumps, which I think is extremely ironic. And in doing that, they also earned low carbon credits, which gives them $4 million a year, even though they are pumping oil. And so I discussed low carbon credits. So you guys might be wondering, what are low carbon credits and what are things related to it? So low carbon credits will come from a thing called a low carbon fuel standard, which is a market-based program that essentially incentivizes people or gives them a reason to reduce how much carbon they're using, or carbon intense fuels. So like they promote a lot of CO2 or carbon dioxide into the air within a state. So they get these low carbon credits, and they represent 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide reduced, which means, so hey, if you don't use less carbon, you get this little credit, and the value of this credit is ultimately determined by what's going on in that market at the time, but they can be worth a lot of money. So it's kind of basically incentivizes them to use less carbon in order to get more money. However, that can be used at a disadvantage, or for certain areas like Chevron, gas company, utilizing that so to make more gas. Um, so, oh, sorry.
No. I was just going to say thank you
Yeah,
so
sorry.
much. Thank you. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, so I was going to talk a little
Okay.
bit about what mitigation is and what are carbon
Okay.
offset
Perfect.
stuff, just to give you guys a bunch of information about renewable energy and what's going on, because it's really important that we stay educated and we know about our options and what we can do as what are our solutions, basically. So mitigation is something that comes up a lot, and it's the process of making something less severe, less dangerous and painful and stuff. And then we have a thing called carbon offsets, and that comes off, and it's, a lot of people think of carbon offsets and carbon tax as similar, but there are differences in that. So carbon offsets are this form of trade. So when you buy an offset, you purchase this thing called an offset, you fund projects, that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So these projects might be restoring forests that have been previously taken down by some event or deforestation, updating power plants and factories, or increasing the energy efficiency of buildings, making them more friendly, or transportation. However, there are a lot of problems to buying and trading carbon offsets that I don't think is really known to the public. I just want to give a shout out to Jim Wong. He's been a great help with a lot of this information. So just wanted to put that out there. So one of the biggest problems is that offsets actually fail to reduce carbon emissions. And carbon emissions, like I mentioned earlier, are what cause climate change and other related issues. So there's a study by this German Environmental Research Institute that tried to investigate how effective carbon offsets were in offsetting these emissions, especially projects like the UN, and it concluded that only about 2% of the projects actually are able to reduce missions, and a lot of them weren't working. So this means like emission reductions could have occurred without paying the offset, and that the offset really didn't do much to reduce the emissions, and that it was just kind of another thing. Another thing is that these offsets often lead to ecological and human right issues. So we're talking about environmental injustices as well as ecological injustices. So since it's cheaper to do these offsets or projects in the global south, they often lead to a lot of local conflicts in those areas or land grabbing. So this is especially the case with like a lot of land or forest-based projects, like the one I mentioned with the restoring the forest restoration projects. And often a lot of these, often smallholders of it or indigenous people are restricted use of the forest for their ancestral ways, in order to store the predicted amount of carbon in the trees. So ultimately, this offsetting is really kind of like carbon colonialism for many indigenous groups, because it restricts their use of the forest as well. And we want to make sure that when we are trying to offset emissions, we do it in a sustainable and a humanitarian way. So offsetting also diverts attention from a lot of realistic solutions. So I mean, there's just so many other solutions besides carbon offsets that can provide real-time solutions. While these projects might help, like I said, there's also a multitude of issues, as well as these offsets only cover carbon dioxide. And while carbon dioxide is really prominent and it's one of the biggest emissions, there are a lot of other emissions that aren't covered, like methane, and so many other super potent or very strong emissions that will affect our atmosphere and others that aren't covered by this offset. So there are, these offsets can be pretty troublesome. While they seem to have a pretty good intention, there are still a lot of cons to this. And so it can be used to disadvantage for the environment. So we must work to reduce greenhouse gases, ultimately causing climate change, in order to protect our future and reduce toxic air and water pollution that are caused by these. And so with that being said, I know it was a lot. I'm super sorry about that, but I just wanted to let you guys know about all that information. I'd like to introduce Judith. So Judith, could you please introduce yourself and talk about what you are working on?
Yes, hello. Thank you, Leanna, for telling us all about that. So I am an artist with cleanearthforkids.org and part of Team 3, where all of us work to reduce air pollution, sources of air pollution. Did you know that asthma is the #1 cause of school absences and the 3rd leading cause to why children under the age of 15 are hospitalized in the US? We must have protections for our air. Please turn off your engines when you're parked or when you're waiting for the traffic light to turn green, because we need to stop idling. Kids breathe here.
Thank you, Judith. So you've done such an amazing job at explaining why the MATS, or the Mercury and Air Toxic Standards rollback, is very harmful. In fact, even Harvard Law School shouted you out. So Judith, could you please tell us why mercury is harmful and a little bit more about MATS?
Yes, thank you, Anna. So I've mentioned MATS a lot in a lot of past panel discussions. And so yeah, mercury hurts our brains. It can actually affect the developing brains of children, where exposure can actually lead to permanent neurological damage and even a loss of IQ. Because the Environmental Protection Agency took away MATS, Mercury and Air Toxic Standards, children who live near these coal-fired power plants will be exposed to mercury, lead, arsenic, and other toxins. Andrew Wheeler, a former coal lobbyist who now leads the EPA, said that reducing power plants' toxic pollution is not worth the cost to industry. So this is actually really terrible, because coal power plants release mercury, lead, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and carbon dioxide, a potent or strong greenhouse gas. This contributes to climate change, and it's also linked to asthma attacks, heart problems, and other well-known diseases. So the purpose of MATS, environmental protection, was to protect children and communities from mercury and other air toxics, just like the name, coming from burning fossil fuels at power plants. But unfortunately, 68% of people of color living within 30 miles of coal-fired power plants. It is not healthy or safe for people to breathe in toxic air pollution from power plants, factories, busy highways, or airports. This is so serious that 16 states and New York City are suing for MATS protection.
As they should be. Thank you, Judith. So I know a lot of this can sound pretty devastating and concerning, but I know that you also have some good news to share about a coal plant that will be shutting down or retiring. Could you please tell us about that?
Yes. So yeah, we have some very good news. On July 29th, the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission unanimously or without disagreements voted to replace San Juan Generating Station with 100% renewable energy when the coal-fired power plant is retired in 2022. This means no more mercury, arsenic, lead, and other toxins in their air, and no more coal ash in their water. It will also create more than 1,000 construction jobs and $1 billion of investment into the local communities to build the solar power stations and battery storage.
Wow, that sounds great, and I'm glad to hear about at least one plant shutting down. I know it's really small, but it is a big step, and it seems like a lot's going on with the shutting down of it. So, could you also talk to us about the what you mentioned earlier when you're introducing yourself, the RGGIs, or the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and its goals?
Yes. Okay. So RGGI, it can also be called RGGI. It means the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. It aims, or its goals are to reduce toxic mercury, sulfur dioxide, and greenhouse gases. This program creates thousands of new jobs and improves public health. 10 states in the Northeast started RGGI in 2009 to reduce power plant emissions. A 2017 study found that the health benefits of RGGI were worth between $3 to $8.3 billion a year. This is just in 10 states. That is why we must have MATS and other protections for our air, because we must have clean air. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Gabby.
Hi everyone. So like I introduced myself earlier, I'm Gabby with Team 5. And because toxic chemicals are being produced and sold without enough oversight, Judith and I want to review our concerns on how the chemical industries are covering up such substantial information involving the ingredients that are included in products that are being sold. So this concept is called cherry picking.
Okay, so Gabby, can you please explain to us what exactly cherry picking is and why it's a problem?
So cherry picking is information that the public needs to know. Cherry picking pulls out only the best data and not showing the rest of it. And the chemical industry has done this to try to make their products look safer. Industry-funded studies tried to prove that toxic chemicals are safe, and we are concerned about the poor quality of data submitted by these chemical industries.
Thank you. So can you please explain to us who is ALEC and why are we concerned about this ALEC?
So ALEC stands for American Legislative Exchange Council, and ALEC creates model bills for state legislators across the country. And pesticide companies, chemical companies, and fossil fuel companies give money to ALEC to write the laws they want, and then they pay lobbyists and put pressure and try to persuade our representatives to pass this.
Well, that's really devastating. Okay, so Who has been appointed to top positions during the Trump administration, and what are their goals?
So unfortunately, a coal lobbyist named Andrew Wheeler is in charge of the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency. And since he's been there, he's rolled back one of our most influential environmental protection, which is MATS, which you heard Judith talk about earlier. And it's the Mercury and Air Toxic Standard. And Andrew Wheeler's goal is trying to help the people who own the coal-fired power plants, but he doesn't consider the workers who are exposed to the harmful toxins. And also, another former oil lobbyist named David Bernhardt is the US Secretary of the Interior, and he's in charge of our public lands. So taking a look at what has happened, his goal is to sell off our public lands and allow oil companies to drill. Bernhardt has helped look after an unequal expansion of oil and gas on public lands. While doing this, has collected little to no public comment and virtually no environmental reviews. This is bad because we need our voices to be heard.
Yes, I agree. Our voices need to be heard. But can you please tell us what is a disinformation campaign? Can you please give us an example of what has been happening under the Trump administration?
Okay, so disinformation is information that is not correct and is created to do harm and change public opinion or hide the truth. It comes from a Russian word first used in the 1950s. This is different from misinformation. Misinformation is false information, but it wasn't meant to hurt anybody. The rollbacks or undoing of protection of our air and water are often transformed in something positive, not what is really happening. So for example, the EPA proposed a science transparency rule, but there isn't anything transparent about it, but it would be the opposite. It would keep all kinds of valuable medical studies from being looked at.
Why is it that disinformation campaigns are happening, and what are some ideas to recognize disinformation?
So disinformation happens when someone wants to mislead us, and we must think critically about it. And some ideas to recognize disinformation is by checking the sources of the information and asking who funded it and who gets benefits from it.
Can you please tell us what is the concern about big chemical industry groups?
The big chemical industry groups are hiding behind and funding groups in studies that show products are safe when they're not.
Who is the American Chemistry Society?
The American Chemistry Society is funded by the industry and has more than $1 billion in funding. They fight open access to their research and papers and only release what benefits the industry. So withholding and disregarding scientific information, it's a real concern. So an example is a group that says they are a pro-science consumer advocacy organization and a 501c3 nonprofit founded in 1978. They defend fracking, pesticides, and they deny climate change. They are funded by companies like Chevron, Exxon, Bayer, Monsanto, Dow, and the Koch brothers. Their executive director went to jail for fraud. So part of what we see in the rollbacks is hiding of information. The EPA restricted who is eligible to serve on their advisory groups. They banned any scientist who is receiving EPA grant funding. This is a problem because many of the experts in the field are doing EPA-funded research. That leaves researchers who are privately funded and funded by corporations. And the EPA has 3 advisory groups. The Scientific Advisory Board looks at the current science. The Board of Scientific Counselors works with the EPA scientists, and the Clear Air Scientific Advisory Committee advises the EPA. The EPA broke up the Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee, which focused on particulate matter or PM, which is extremely harmful to human health and the environment as a whole.
The EPA postpones, shortens, or cancels meetings with these groups. These greatly reduces the input of independent scientists and researchers.
Yes. And now I would like to introduce Catherine.
Hi everyone, I'm Catherine, an intern with cleanearthforkids.org from Cal State San Marcos. I'm so happy to be part of Team 2 to work on planting trees, gardens, as well as protecting public lands, forests, and wildlife. Before I begin, I'd like to share my screen with all of you, so you guys are able to see my slides.
Hi, the screen isn't shared yet, so go ahead and just
Okay.
roll along with that. Do you have the screen, or is John's
Okay,
gonna just?
here it is.
Are you gonna share it? Okay.
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Okay, let me press present.
Yeah, you got it. Okay.
Okay, so I will be talking about the Endangered Species Act, which has been affected for more than 40 years. Are you guys able to see my slides, or are you guys able to see the doc?
Well, we can see, my view isn't, I don't know about your view over there. So just go ahead and do your best, and John can share if he needs to. John, can you
Okay.
see my screen, please?
Yeah, the Mac
that-
looks goofed up.
It looks goofed up. Yeah, so it's not really very clear. So there we go. I don't know what happened. You could try again to do
Okay.
present. And if
Okay.
not, okay, there you go. That looks pretty good.
Okay. So the first animal that I will be talking about is the wolverine. It is the largest land-dwelling member of the weasel family. There are no more than 300 species that are remaining today. Climate change is the main threat to these species. As snow is melting, they struggle to find a home. Not only is climate change a threat, but also human disturbances and low genetic diversity are all threats as well. The next animal is the sea otter. They play an important role in keeping kelp forests in balance. They are also a keystone species. They are protected since 1977. Threats to the sea otter are infectious diseases that are caused by polluted runoffs, oil spills, and fishing gear entanglement. Last year, Supreme Court declined to review a decision that would boost the species' chances to expand their population. The Endangered Species Act. It has the most threatened species from going extinct. There's almost 2,700 species on the Endangered Species Act. Their main goal is to protect the species so they no longer need protection, meaning that the Florida manatee may be endangered today, but in the future, hopefully, they won't be endangered. And then also, such as the bald eagle and the southern sea otter are thriving because of this ESA, because they're protected. The ESA bans the capture and hunting of endangered species. The rate of legislative attack on endangered species has increased by 600% in just the last 15 years. So it needs to be protected. The Endangered Species Act protects their ecosystems with rules of all agencies that they must also protect, making it easier for endangered species to be saved. And CleanEarthForKids.org thanks Earthjustice for all of their hard work in protecting the Endangered Species Act against Trump administration. Threats to the Endangered Species Act. The first is it ignores science and wildlife experts and the hundreds of thousands of objections from scientists and wildlife experts. Second, it puts cost before saving the species. So as we all know, Trump administration only cares about logging quickly and not really regarding the species. And the third is it disregards climate change science from decisions. So it doesn't take into account all the data that we have and using it for bad instead. Okay, let's move on. So the Yellowstone grizzly bear. So this is some good news. The Yellowstone grizzly bear has been doing pretty good because of the Endangered Species Act and because of the work that Earthjustice has been doing. It remains on the Endangered Species Act just of last month because the Trump administration was working to take the grizzly bear off for sport hunting, but it will remain on the list now. And this will help the bears remain in their natural habitats and be able to reproduce. Only a small population of grizzly bears remain in the US. And I would like to also add that just give me 1 second, sorry. Okay, so the Endangered Species Act was signed into law by Richard Nixon, and its purpose is to protect and recover species and their ecosystems on which they rely. And we also want to thank CARB for the grant to plant trees and put no idling signs at schools and purchase pollution monitors for citizen science and pay for radio we will create. We'll be holding editions soon, and you can learn more on our website, cleanearthforkids.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It's really important to talk about the Endangered Species Act and all the other animals that are being impacted by this and so forth. So before we finish the panel tonight, I just want to talk to you guys a little bit more just briefly about divestment and how it all connects to the rollbacks and everything that's going on, because a lot of this information that we give you can sound very scary and feel like we don't have any solutions for it. But I think one thing that we can encourage larger organizations, whether it's universities, companies, corporations, to do is divestment and stuff, because, well, let's think about it like this. So reducing pollution overall is super important, right? With the 100 rollbacks during the Trump administration, we are losing those protections, those environmental protections. Next week, just to mention, we will be talking about the Clean Air Act and actions you can take to protect our air and air-related policies. Also just to protect our lungs, and we must just have strong environmental protections in place for that at all times. But unfortunately, even with COVID-19 putting more people at risk for passing away from respiratory illnesses than ever, the EPA is taking away our protection, a lot of air-related protections as well. So going back to kind of discussing divestment and everything and how it all connects, well, it's the EPA's job to protect us from pollution, not allow polluters to dump toxic waste into our air and water. And burning fossil fuels creates air pollution and makes people more susceptible and defenseless to COVID-19, especially communities living near these power plants, these factories, and these highways. And these communities are also having higher death rates of from COVID-19 because of this. So divesting from fossil fuels and investing in renewable energy is the right thing to do, and one of the things that we as citizens can try and promote are either our universities, our cities, our school districts, and so much more to divest from fossil fuels. So divestment is meaning taking money out of fossil fuel industries and particularly investing in renewable energy. So for example, US direct subsidies to the fossil fuel industries, so the money that they're giving, is at roughly $20 billion per year, with 20% of that currently put into coal and 80% of it to natural gas and oil. So that's incredibly not only frustrating but concerning, considering everything we've discussed tonight. So I urge you to urge your university, your city, your state, your representatives, and so many more to divest from fossil fuel money, and just look into it if you can, because it is a big barrier to investing and moving towards renewable energy. So that is something you on an individual level can try and convince others to do. So just want to also shout out the University of California system for divesting from fossil fuels. It's a great thing because I will also be joining that system soon. So it's amazing and comfortable to know that they're divesting. And the universities that still have to divest are schools and universities like Harvard, Columbia, Stanford, Cornell, Georgetown, Yale, Oxford, and organizations that are especially important to our organization, and like people on our board, such as Suzanne, And J is CalSTRS, which is for retired teachers, and they also haven't divested yet either. So we are hoping that you will join us in the fight for divesting from fossil fuels and understand its importance for us moving towards renewable energy. So I just want to thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. So yes, absolutely. So Fossil Free California has done a lot of work to try to work or try to get organizations such as and agencies, universities to divest from fossil fuels, to take the money out. So as a teacher, I'm appalled. I am just absolutely sickened that the money that I worked so hard for and for so many years working with students to do my very best to give them a great education and everything that they need. It just makes me sad and very sick to my stomach to think that that money is going into fossil fuels to those companies. And so we need to take the money out. So definitely join us, please. We are working with Fossil Free California. There's also Fossil Free Yale. There's all of the universities are working on this. So your letters make a huge difference, your phone calls. And as much as we love Harvard, and our BFF there, Caitlin, right, at the Harvard Law School Energy and Environmental Program, you know, the people who are making these decisions at Harvard, not Caitlin, they must divest, and they must divest now. And as thankful and grateful as we are to Columbia University for their fabulous tracker, and so grateful for everyone there. Our, you know, another BFF, Hillary, right? It's not her decision to make. So it's what we have to do. We have to step forward. We need to make these calls. We need to be active on it and get on it. So like I said, Fossil Free California is working on this. Food and Water Watch, you know, Earth Justice, NRDC, Sierra Club, so many more, you know, Moms Clean Air Force. So many fabulous organizations are stepping up to try to sound, you know, to let people know what we need to do and what actions to take. So I'm really encouraged by you guys. I mean, you've learned so much. I'm so proud. I'm so proud. So thank you so much. All of the great information, just so many things to think about and to learn. So I just wanted to say, yes, next week, Jamie Washington, Mrs. Jamie Washington will show or talk to us a little bit more about air pollution and some things we can do and how its impacts on communities of color. And we'll have other panelists as well. And then in 2 weeks, we have Dr. Sarah Jean Royer from Scripps Institute of Oceanography. She discovered how plastic emits methane. So that was a huge discovery. We're going to learn all about plastics. And Jay also on our board, Kloffenstein and Julie Morisseau, and others with us, Jim Wong. We have a lot to talk about in terms of plastics. So in the meantime, I hope everyone can watch The Story of Plastic. If you have not seen this movie, it talks about how the fossil fuel industry, what they're doing, right? And how it's related to plastics. So please check that out. We're going to have a free viewing and then a panel discussion, so everybody can watch that movie for free. On our youth board, that's all been, you know, sent to you, but we are going to be advertising that and then having a panel discussion so anyone at your university, your high school, or whatever can watch The Story of Plastics. We're also looking forward to hosting Oceana. Shark Week is coming up. And so there are important things to say about protections for animals, including sharks. So that's very important. Of course, tonight we're missing some of our people that are busy off and doing amazing things, saving the world. You can't do it all. So a special shout out and all our love is being sent to Janice and Neem and Kevin and Hannah and so many more that I haven't. Oh, Kirsten, of course, and Courtney, and all of our fabulous youth and our interns and volunteers. Thank you so much for all that you do. And we have our board and everything. So thank you so much. So before we sign off for tonight, and I'll tell you what we're going to do after that, I'll stay on the call where you can, if you'd like to stay on and ask any questions. We know our favorite volunteer, sorry, we're biased, our favorite volunteer, Sydney Pitcher, will be on here. She created an amazing video that Darren helped us edit. Gabby's another fabulous video editor. You can check out our stuff on cleanearthforkids.org on our YouTube. Anyway, so Sydney often stays after and has a lot of great questions and things as she is an environmentalist. So excited to talk with her and all that would love to stay on. Alicia and Elijah, we're super excited for all of your animal stories. Did you learn so much? Listening to Catherine about the Endangered Species Act, I know you were thinking all about it, and I'm so excited. So we can just do the big shout out if you guys are interested in writing stories, anyone, creative writing, all that great stuff, then you can join us. We usually do that Mondays and Fridays. And we have citizen science. Thank goodness for Jay Kloffenstein for bringing us all these projects that we do. So if we haven't mentioned something that you're interested in, just please know we're working on it, or we will work on it. So just check out our website. So before we go, I'd love our youth panelists to say something about what inspires them. So here's your question. What inspires you to do this work? How do you stay motivated? When we hear about these things going on, how do you stay motivated? So what inspires you? How do you stay motivated? And what's the one thing that you want us to go out and do? And if you have to say two, then that's okay, or more. But what's the one thing you want us to think about or do or learn about? And of course, so sorry, these questions are not pre-prepared. They had no idea. So this is an awesome experience for you guys. So I am going to start with someone who loves to do a lot of talking like I do, Leanna. So Leanna, you start us off and let us know what motivates you and what inspires you and what action do you want us to take. And then Leanna, after you speak, then you'll call on someone else and then they'll call on someone else. Okay? All right. Thank you.
I get this question a lot of what inspires me. And I think my answer will always remain the same, and it is my fellow youth, because I feel like there's so much change that has to be done and is needed. And I feel like we are really the generation that is putting in the work to make that progressive change. And I feel like we are motivated like no other generation before us, especially because we're so unique in the sense that we have technology to back us up. We can connect to so many people from around the world, and from just like, it's like there's so much, communication is key for planning and for creating change. And our platform for communication has increased by like tenfold in our generation. So I think that's really what inspires me to do what I do and to just keep going. And in terms of motivation, I think a lot of the problems that we're facing have been left for us from other generations. So I think if not us, then who? Who's going to fix these things? Because while there are a lot of people in other generations that are trying to, a lot of it's not being done, and there's not enough motivation behind it to be done. And so I think it's really up to us to fix the problems that we're faced with, because like I said, if not us, then who? And one of the things that I hope to see us do is I hope for us to do a carbon neutrality training. That is something I'm really interested in working on with everybody and producing, so that way people can learn more about it, because I think it's a really important topic, especially when we're talking about energy types, which is arguably one of the biggest problems with climate change and environmental injustices, because once it just kind of, it's a domino effect, and it impacts so many other things besides just energy. It impacts people, it impacts public health, and so many more. So I think providing the training for that's accessible and it's digestible for everybody is of the utmost importance for me personally. So with that being said, I'm going to popcorn to Jonah.
All right, thanks a lot. I think that I'm motivated by just the great work that I hear other people doing, similar to what you said, Leanna. But you know, we talk about all these not so good things happening in the news or in policy, and you know, it's easy to get disappointed or discouraged. But you know, at the same time, there's incredible things happening all around the world. And for instance, we talked about divestment today, and My own school, Georgetown, was one of those schools listed as schools that are still currently invested in fossil fuel companies. But thanks to the advocacy of a lot of students on campus, the university did commit this February to do like a gradual phasing out. They're going to divest, and they said like 5 years or something like that. But we have a commitment, and it was thanks to dedicated students. And I wish I'd been a part of that. I didn't learn about it soon enough, I guess. But and then in terms of what we can do today, I work with clean water, and one of the things that I try to do in my own life to minimize the impacts I have on wasting water and such is that once or twice a week I try to a meal that I might normally think to have red meat, I don't eat red meat. I'm not going to get on my high horse or anything about don't eat meat or anything like that, because that tends to stress people out. But that's one thing I do, because cows take an unbelievable amount of water. And the numbers are the stat is that the amount of water it takes to make one hamburger patty is equivalent to if you stood in your shower for 2 months. So I mean, so one meal can really make a difference. So I encourage you to do that this week. And with that, I will pass off to Judith. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay. So what inspires me? Okay. So my answer would be related to Jonah and Leanna, like the youth board, because they're so hardworking, because they research so hard about this information, and because they want to educate the public and the children and the kids, like everyone, and they're just so inspirational and motivating for me to work, and it motivates me to like try hard in my art and express how I really feel, because 1,000 words, like art can speak 1,000 words. I think that's the saying. I think so. But what else motivates me? Also, not other nonprofit organizations motivate me, because like Earth Justice, Surfrider, there's more, I can't remember. I'm sorry. Because they wake up every day to like make a change, make a difference, and they work hard. They just work hard, and that's just like so inspirational. And what was the last question? I forgot.
If you could have people do one thing, what would it be? Or take one action or know one thing, what would it be? And by the way, hats off to you, all day today, all day yesterday, until late, putting this panel discussion together. Seriously, this panel discussion wouldn't happen without your help. It just wouldn't. Sorry, but it just wouldn't. Well, you're awesome. You're awesome, and it is so dang helpful. It is so helpful. I just can't even tell you. So anyway, okay, one thing or one action that you want us to take.
I guess I talked about it. Like really, it's related to Team 3. No idling. Because one thing I try to do, I tell my dad to try to is like stop the engines when we are waiting for the traffic lights to turn green, because 1 minute of idling has more carbon monoxide than 3 packs of cigarettes, which I found really surprising when I first found out about it. So yeah, I guess stop idling when you're waiting or you're parked. So yeah. Oh, right. Next person, Catherine.
Thanks, Judith. So one thing that inspires me is seeing people my age sharing the same ideologies as I do and holding the same priorities for environmental justices. And something that motivates me is thinking about what the future will look like environmentally and using that to build a career within it. That inspires me a lot. And something that I have for you all to do is post at least 2 petitions this week on social media to let people that you follow or that follow you get involved, because a lot of the times when I post petitions, people message me and are more interested in learning about what is happening with that petition. So it's a great way to like spread knowledge through social media about what's happening. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So I know you're going to call on Gabby in just a second, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, but before we say that, absolutely. And we've got petitions on our website, and we ourselves, like Cleaner for Kids, needs to do better with that. I mean, we're on Twitter, we're on, you know, we have a Facebook and an Instagram, but we definitely need to ramp it up, definitely, and all do better in that. So I just wanted to ask you, Catherine, can we task you with that? Can you every
Do
time
social media.
remind us? Well, and also remind us about, hey guys, let's sign these petitions. Let's get it done.
Yeah. I was actually looking real quick. I was looking for the petition that we were talking about earlier in this panel discussion about Burn Me and the Flint water, and I couldn't find it.
Okay, so
I was wondering if
on
maybe
the
we can look
water, yeah. So let's
on
make
the
sure that it's there. So yeah, so it's called the Waters Act. So hopefully that's on our website, cleanearthforkids.org, under petitions.
Okay.
So that should be there. So that should be there. So if it's not, we sincerely apologize. And John sincerely apologizes if it's not there, but I think it's there. Anyway, okay, all right. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So Gabby, Gabby.
Okay, so a lot of things that inspire me are very similar to the youth board. It's when I see other people doing things, and especially students, I feel like we're very focused on like getting good grades. So when I see organizations like Cleanup for Kids and other people going out and doing things and like actually making a difference, it kind of makes me think like, wow, like I want to do that too. So it's very inspiring to see other people do things. So yeah, and kind of causes like a chain reaction. And something, okay, so there's multiple things, but there's two that I want to bring up. So actually the other day I went to the beach and I saw a bunch of trash, just like a bunch of trash just dumped on the sand. And I kind of want to encourage people to stop littering and to stop using so much plastic and stuff and just dumping it wherever they want. And also to stop and spread awareness about pesticides, because as Miss Suzanne's story was very inspiring, and I've gotten to learn a lot more about pesticides as I've been here with Cleaner for Kids, and I realize how harmful they are and how people are getting away with it without even knowing what it's actually doing to our environment. So I encourage you guys to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I have to, you guys, so awesome. So in terms of pesticides in the county of San Diego, we will be marching forward. We did not get what we wanted. We wanted a ban on glyphosate, so on leased lands, because we want to ban toxic pesticides that are neurotoxic, etc. We have a huge list of things that are being used on leased lands in the county of San Diego, near homes where I was poisoned, and near Mission Vista High School. So we have students that attend there that are involved with Cleaner for Kids. And so, you know, and of course, all kids, we want them to be safe. So we did not, unfortunately, prevail in our action on Wednesday, which of course made me feel really sad. However, I know that we don't give up and we just keep marching forward and letting people know, because then thank you so much, Gabby and Judith, for your amazing presentation. That was amazing. It was amazing about disinformation and the chemical companies and all that. It was just amazing. Anyway, so there's still a lot out there. So people don't have the facts and the real truth. So we'll just keep walking forward on that and just keep up the faith. And super excited to say that we are going to be helping the city of Oceanside again with the climate action plan. So that's just so awesome. So we were invited again. Thank you to Russ Cunningham, principal planner for Oceanside. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for letting us help pass the first climate action plan for Oceanside ever. We only got 75% renewable energy passed, but you know what? Hey, it's something. So, I mean, it's you know, we got, so go on, we're in there. And Oceanside doesn't have the CCE either. It's embarrassing. You know, we work so hard, but, you know, while the other cities do, to purchase, like Leanna was talking about, renewable energy, and have people using renewable energy instead of burning fossil fuels. So for me, if I had to say one thing, it's, hey, when you can turn off your lights, when you can turn off something or unplug it, turn it off, unplug it, please do. And again, with Judith, of course, no idling, turn your engine off when you're not using it. So park in the shade. And one thing with COVID is that how all these drive-throughs, so if all these engines are running, just like Judith said, 1 minute of idling has more carbon monoxide than 3 packs of cigarettes. So it all is cumulative, and we have to do all we can to stop sources of pollution, like you guys have mentioned, and just continue to work hard. I forgot to say, shout out to Darren, and how much we miss her and love her. I'm mortified that I forgot to say that. So one of our key people at Cleaner for Kids is Darren. She's attending UCLA, so she's not here tonight because she had something she needed to do for school. But anyway, yeah, all of you guys and the amazing work that you're doing. I mean, you're youth goes to 24, right? So you're youth and you're making these huge changes, policy changes in cities and doing all this important work. So I'm so proud of you, and we all are here. And again, Chelsea's not here, Cadence, so many others. Thank you for all the work that you do and all the important things that you do.